jobs right out of school, just to start, without the experience to be able to help government keep pace. And the competition is going to just fuel greater intensity and greater inflation among the wages, which, again, good thing for the kids, but hard for the success of government relations within the industry. Thank you. I want to go into the second round. I could do a third and a fourth round. I'll probably try and let you out of here by 4 o'clock, a little bit after. Mr. Gregory, you recently co-chaired the Threats and Harms Task Force within the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity. My staff tells me it's referred to as C2PA. C2PA refers to provenance as the basic, trustworthy facts about the origins of a piece of digital content. This could help users distinguish between human and AI-generated content. It could reveal personal information about the creator of that content as well. So the question I have is, how do we protect the privacy of content creators while being transparent with consumers about the content they see when they're online?
I should be. As the Senator notes, I co-chaired the Threats and Harms Task Force. I don't speak for the C2PA here, but I'll make some observations about how we protect privacy in this context. I think this is absolutely critical. A starting point is to recognize we're moving into a much more complex media ecosystem. So the idea of understanding how media is made, how it has evolved, right, where the AI has come in, where the human element has come in, I think is going to become increasingly important. When we think about that future, though, we need to make sure that these systems are not either accidentally or deliberately, perhaps by authoritarian governments who might adopt them, systems which they can track people's activity. That's why when we start looking at these types of approaches, we have to start from the principle that they do not oblige personal information or identity to be part of it. That is particularly easy with AI-generated content, because really what matters with AI generation is how, not who, right? The AI was used. The who could be helpful, but it's not necessary, and it could be helpful to the wrong people. So when we start from that premise, I think that's very important as Congress looks at how to standardize this and how to approach this, that they understand how we're going to reflect the evolving nature of media production in a way that protects privacy, doesn't oblige personally identifiable information, and will be usable worldwide. Senator Blackburn's question earlier about how the US can compete. We should be developing standards that can be applicable globally. That means they need to be accessible, privacy protecting, and usable in a variety of contexts globally.
Absolutely. Ms. Espinal, increasing the transparency of AI systems is one of the key vehicles by which we gain confidence and trust among the users. Without appropriate guardrails around the risks from AI, I think developers will struggle to compete in the US and certainly internationally as well. So it is in our best interest to demonstrate leadership on a safe and responsible deployment. What transparency steps do you prioritize, do you think are most crucial in terms of gaining the trust of consumers?
So I want to start off by saying that I think building trust, as you say, is important for our ability to compete. I think it's important for the U.S. economy, and it's obviously important in terms of protecting consumers. So I think that's an absolutely critical step. Impact assessments are a tool that we think that organizations should be using, whether they're creating the AI or they're using the AI. If they're in a high-risk situation, if the AI is being used to make a consequential decision, then impact assessments are an accountability tool that should be required. And by requiring impact assessments, you will increase transparency. Consumers need to have confidence that if AI is being used in a way that could have an impact on their rights or have a significant consequence for their life, that AI is being vetted and that it is being continuously monitored to be as safe, as secure, as non-discriminatory as possible. And so I would go back to saying having a requirement for impact assessments by developers or deployers in high-risk situations, having a strong national law from the United States, I think is very important in terms of protecting consumers and our economy. And then going to your last point, I think it's also very important for the United States to have an affirmative model of effective legislation when other countries are moving quickly to regulate. And I think having the United States be a leader in shaping that conversation and the global approach to responsible AI is critically important.
An affirmative model, what a concept. Dr. Christian, you've done a lot of research with consumers and social behavior within digital environments. So on that same subject, what information should be disclosed to consumers to establish trust in online services around AI?
Well, first and foremost, I think when you're interacting with an AI system, I think you need to know that you're interacting with an AI system. So disclosure, that's the first step. The second is if data is going to be collected by let's say a ChatGPT or Bard during your interaction, you should be explicitly given the option of opting in for the purposes of saying, is my data then going to be used by the AI to further for training purposes? That I think we can learn from much of our prior work in privacy to apply it in this kind of context. So the opt-in. And then the third, I think, is with regard to the trust interaction that individuals have. To a large extent, individuals build trust based on their own experience. Much as we talk about data transparency, model transparency, my interaction with this tool, does it actually behave the way I expect it to? That actually builds trust over time. And I think it's a combination of these that will result in the intended, what we'd like to see as an outcome. One quick additional point I want to make is while we've been talking about NIST RMF and the like, I think it'd be great to have demonstration projects for citizens to recognize the value that AI can actually bring to the table. ChatGPT was perhaps the first time that they got to interact with AI in the kind of scale that we thought they would. It'd be great to see something like the Khan Academy's education products, things of that nature. It gives them a clear indication of the value that this brings. I think that would be very good, too.
Couldn't agree more. I'm going to sneak in one last question before the chair comes back. I don't know if you guys play bridge, but the chair trumps every suit, to be clear. Mr. Gregory, let me switch to my question for Mr. Thayer. The AI ecosystem can be generally viewed as those that develop AI and those that use AI. As we've heard today, there's a lot of nuance around that. Risk management principles should be tailored both to developers and users, employers. And certainly there's not going to be any one size fits all, no silver bullet. How can we create a oversight and enforcement framework to make sure that we can hold bad actors accountable, people that use the AI systems maliciously?
Well, on the true malicious actors out there, there's going to need to be law enforcement cooperation and also enforcement of some of our existing laws. When it comes to standard risk management, a number of the appropriate risk management tools are going to make the model more resilient, more robust, less susceptible to compromise and manipulation. So those are important steps. The other thing just to keep in mind is at these risk management steps, there should be higher risk management for the highest risk use cases and lesser requirements on something that's just doing predictive text in an email. And then finally, also to think a little bit about how small businesses and those that might be just doing experimentation that aren't planning for commercial deployment might be required at a lower standard than those that are going to make massive commercial deployments of things.
That's such a good point, the small business aspect gets overlooked so often. I'm going to have to go vote, but I'm going to leave you in the very capable hands of Senator Cantwell, who, as I said earlier, really knows probably more about this issue than anybody else in the Senate. So I'm not worried that you're going to get, oops.